Hello and welcome to another exciting one, my friends. It's been a while, and today we are going to learn how to model a beautiful mouse from scratch. So I had that inspiration from this people. So this mouse, we are going to try and create something like this from scratch. Hopefully we'll be able to. So without much talks, open up your Blender and let's get started. So I'm inside Blender and I'm going to be using the latest version of Blender, which is Blender 4.2, where you'll be able to follow along with any version of Blender you have. So we go to General to start with a new file. So this is going to be a little bit on the intermediate side, but I'll try as much as possible to explain everything to be as clear as possible so that everyone will be able to follow along. So I'll select these two shapes and then delete them from my scene. Next, we are going to add in our reference image. So we hit on here to go to our top orthographic view, and then I'll drag and drop my top view of my image. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below in case you want to follow along to download the reference images to follow along. So I've added in my reference image, and once I add in the image, I'm going to reset the location so that it's right in the center. So I'll hit on N to bring out my transform, and then I'll make sure the Y is 0 and then the X is 0 as well, so that our reference image is right in the center. So next, let's select this and then let's lock our reference image so that we'll not be able to move our reference image. And then let's bring it, the depth, let's set it to front, and then let's set opacity, and then let's decrease our opacity a little bit, right? So once we have our reference image, let's start with the bottom part of our mouse. So I'm talking about this part here. So this part here, the bottom part, let's start with that one first. So to start with that one, let's add in a circle. So let's do Shift A, mesh, and then let's add in a circle. So once we have our circle inside, let's pop this up, and then let's change the number of vertices to 14. Right. So the reason why we are changing it to 14 is because we want this line and then this line here, because we are going to use it later. So it's very important to change it to 14. We have enough polygons to create a circle, and then we need these two lines here to manipulate later. So you understand later when we go on. So we're going to scale them in so that they are properly scaled. So once we have the line inside, let's select everything and then let's hit on S to scale it down until it's roughly the same size as our reference image. So once it's the same size, let's do Ctrl+A, and then let's apply our scale. Then let's hit on tab to enter into edit mode. So once we are in tab, let's select this. So we drag and select this. Make sure we are in point mode. Let me zoom in, and then let's hit on G to move it on this axis, on the Y axis like this, right? So we move it to, we are somewhere here. So we have something like this, and then let's do the same thing at the back. So let's select these two, G. Now let's move this one on the Y axis till it's touching our reference image like this, right? So now if we go into our perspective view, this is what we have created so far. So let's hit on A to select everything, and then 2, and then let's hit on E to extrude on the Z axis, so that we extrude it to something like this, right? Maybe a little bit up like this. So once we have this, let's add in some loop cuts here and then here, right? So if I hit on tab, then I'll do Ctrl+2 to create a subdivision. So add modifier and then add a subdivision. This is what we have, right? So let's add in some loop cuts in the middle, just to tighten up our shape a little bit more, to make it a little bit more beautiful. So Ctrl+R, I'll scroll my mouse wheel 3 times to add in, just to tighten this side, and then I'll do the same thing here, Ctrl+R, just to tighten it up, right, nicely. So once we are done with that, next we select everything, then we do Alt+E, and then we extrude faces along normals to add in some thickness like this, right? But before I do that, let's go to our top orthographic view so that we can see what we are doing. So we want to create some thickness like this, right? So let's hide our subdivision for a minute, like right clicking on here, and then Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and then let's extrude till we have something like this, right? So nice and simple. Next, let's select, click, and then let's add in some supporting edges. So let's select all the straight edges that we want to add in some supporting edges. So Alt Shift click, Shift Alt Shift click, Alt Shift click, select all these edges around, and then let's do Control plus B to add in a bevel. Let's increase our mouse wheel to add in 3 levels of bevel like this. So once we add in a bevel like this, let's make sure this shape is set to 1, so that our bevel is straight like this, and then we can increase or decrease by holding Shift the level of offset we want. I think something like this is fine. So let's hit on tab to go into out of edit mode, and this is what we have. Nicely, let's right click and then let's shade it smooth. Right. And this is nice and beautiful. So we are done with the bottom part. So next, let's focus on creating the top part, which is this side, right? So I'll go to my perspective mode, hit on tab to enter into edit mode. So I'll zoom in and then make sure we are in edge select mode. Alt click to select this edge here. So we are going to borrow this geometry and use it to create the top part. So with the geometry selected, I'll do Shift plus D to create a duplicate like this. I'll right click to keep the duplicate in place, and then I'll hit on P, and then I'll do separate by selection. So once I hit on separate by selection, this image is going to be a different image altogether. So we have circle 1, which was the first one we used, and then we have circle 001, which was the duplicate we just created. So now if I hit on tab to go out of edit mode, you can see we have circle 1, which will be this one, and then we have this, right? So let's quickly rename it so that we don't get confused. So I'll name this as bottom bar, and the name will work. That's what I think, and then I'll name it at the top. Right, so we have the bottom, then we have the top, and then we have our empty and all those cool stuff, right? So now we can select this and then tab into edit mode to go into edit mode, right? So once we are in edit mode, we can hit on A to select everything, and then let's use grid fill to fill this space up, right? So once we've selected everything, which is the top part here, we can go to our mesh faces, and then grid fill. So one thing I've done is if I hit on Q, you can see I have quick favorite, which I've created grid fill as part of one of my quick favorites. So it's something in Blender. If you use Blender more often, you can add quick favorites that you don't need to go here. You just have to tap on Q and then you will get your quick favorite. So let's see how we can create a quick favorite. So let's go to faces, right click, and then you can see we can add it or remove it from quick favorite like this, you see, or you can assign a shortcut to it if you want. So I've added mine to quick favorite, so I'm going to be using G, or you can just click on grid fill to fill it up like this, right? So with our grid fill, let's increase to 6. So let's increase the span to 6, and then let's set the offset till everything aligns perfectly like this, right? So let's increase the span to 6, and then let's set the offset to -1 so that we have something like this, right? So once we are done, next let's make sure we have our face select mode active, and then let's select all these faces, so from here to here. So I can select one and then hold shift and control and then click here to select this entire faces like this, right? So once all these faces are selected, let's hit on G and then Z to move them up like this, right? So we've moved them a little bit, and then let's hold on shift and then let's click on these two faces to deselect them, and then let's G Z to move them up like this, and then we'll do the same thing for this one, G Z, then move this one up like this, right? And then finally we can select this edge like this, and then GZ to move it up like this, right? So that we have something like this. We can play along with it to make sure everything is smooth. So if we go to our subdivision surface, this is what we have, right? And if you go to our solid mode, this is what we have. Subdivision, this is what we have. So you can play with it till you find nice and smooth corners. So we can select this and this one, then choosy to bring it down, then maybe do the same thing for this as well, choosy to bring it down. Now let's smooth it out and see what we have, right? So I think it looks nice and beautiful. So next, if we go to our top view once again, let's see how we can create this shape here, this cutout, and then the shape, and then the mouse wheel inside. So to create that shape, first we are going to need extra geometry. So this geometry won't be enough to support that shape here. So unless we subdivide to add in extra geometry, and then we'll be able to create that shape. So first, let's check. We are going to use viewport level of 2, subdivision level of 2 to subdivide. But let's check our subdivision. So I'll go to my edit mode, and then I'll turn on my subdivision in edit mode once again to see how the subdivision is affecting my shape. And then I'll turn this on once again so that I'll see how the subdivision is conforming to the shape. Next, you can turn off optimal display to see the actual level of the subdivision, so that we'll be able to know whether the level of subdivision is enough for the detail. So let's turn it off, and then this is the actual subdivision. So now if we apply the subdivision, this is the actual geometry we are going to have, right? So let's go to our top view, and then let's see whether this will be enough. Yeah, so looking at this, I think this part and then this part will be enough for our detail. Let me go one up and you see how big it is, and then it won't be enough. But then if I add one, it will be enough, right? So once we know this is enough, let's just tab out of edit mode, right click, and then apply our subdivision, right? So now our subdivision is applied. So if I go to tab, this is the actual geometry that we have. Now let's go to our top view, and then let's quickly create this shape, right? So for this one, first let's select this tool here, and then let's hit on G, Z, let's hit on G, let's double tap G, and then let's move them up like this so that they are perfectly in line with this. And then let's select this one, then let's double tap on G, and then let's move them back like this so that they are perfectly aligned with this, right? So that we have this here and then this here. So next, let's straighten it up so that it's exactly rightly straight. As you can see, this is bending a little bit. So with this 3 selected, let's hit on S for scale, Y, so we're scaling to on the Y axis, and then let's hit on 0 to straighten it up. And let's do the same thing here, X, Y, 0. Then we can do the same thing here, S, Y, Z, X. So here we are going to do S and then X and then 0, right? So let me quickly turn on my screencast. I just remembered, sorry. Yeah, here we go. So you can follow along with my screens I'm pressing here. I just turned on the screencast, I forgot. So you can follow along here. So basically we are going to straighten everything up here, 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 and then here. So on this side we'll do SX and then 0 to straighten it up. Then do the same thing here, SX 0, and then do the same thing here, XY 0, and then select this SY 0. So this is perfectly straightened up for us. So once we are done, we hit on 3 to go to our edge face select mode. Select this face, hold shift control click to select this entire face, and then hit on X, then delete faces, right? So that we have this entire face is deleted like this, right? So next, right click and shade it smooth, yeah, so that we can see what we are doing. Nice. So let's go into edit mode once again, and then let's go to our top view like this, and let's select this side and this side, and then delete them once again. So I'll go to my edge select mode, select control by holding on shift, and then I'll just click to select this entire edges here, and then I'll do control plus B to create a bevel. Scroll my mouse wheel down to create 2 level of bevel. Then I'll just bring my mouse wheel out like this to create this widening, right? So once we have this, we have a triangle here. So I'll just hold my shift click to deselect this, make sure I have my face mode active. So I have this here, and then we can hit on X and then delete faces, right? So now if we go into object mode, this is what we have so far, right? Looking beautiful. So next, let's see how we can add in some thickness, and then let's see how we can make sure everything is everything is sharp, as you can see like this. So let's add in our subdivision surface, add a modifier, generate, and then subdivision surface, and you can see how all these corners are getting rounded. So let's see how we can solve that. First, let's start from here. So I'll go into edit mode, and then we have a triangle here. So I'll go to 2 to go to my edge mode, select edge mode, edge select mode, and then select this edge, right click, and then subdivide to create two points at the middle like this. So I'll select this point and then hold shift and select this point, and then I'll hit on J to join these 2 points like this. So now we have 2 triangles here. So with these 2 triangles, I'll select this triangle, then select this one here, and then I'll hit on J to join them, and then I'll do the same thing here as well. Then I'll hit on J to join them, right? So next, let's hit on 2 to go to our edge mode, and then select these 2 triangles. Now I'll hit on Control X to dissolve, or just hit on X and then dissolve edges, right? So now we have quads here and then quads here, right? But then we have triangle here and then a triangle here. So instead of making this line pass here, let's reroute it to cut through this line like this, and then do the same thing. So this line, instead of passing here, we will reroute it to cut through here like this. It's going to make sense in a little. So it means we need 2 points on the 1 point in the middle of this, and then 1 point here. So let's go to edge select mode, select this edge, alt click, select this edge here. Let me just turn on the subdivision so that you can see what I'm doing. So I've selected these 2 edges here, and then I'll right click and then subdivide, right? So once I subdivide these 2 edges, and then I go to my point select mode here, you can see we have 1 point in the middle, and then shift click to select this point. So we have 2 points in the middle like this, and I'll double tap on G, so G, so that I'll be able to slide these points, and I'll slide them closer like this, right? So once I slide them closer like this, select this and then select this, and then hit on J to join, and then do the same thing here, J to join, right? So now once we join, we can hit on 2 to select this one, and then this one to dissolve these ones to create a quad instead of the triangle that we have. So I'll just hit on X, dissolve edges, and then now we have a quad here. We have a quad here, a quad here, a quad here, and then a quad here, right? Nice and simple. So we are going to apply the same principle over and over throughout this shape. You'll see it very soon. So I hit on slash, the slash, to isolate just this part so that we can be able to easily work on, right? So next, let's add in some thickness by adding in some extrusion. So I'll hit on A to select everything, and then what will come into your mind will be Alt E, and then you can do extrude along normals, but then it's going to give you some weird results if you try. So let's try it and see. Alt plus E, extrude along normals, and then you can see how our shape is extruding, which is something we don't want. We want it to extrude straight forward down. So I'll go to Control Z, and then I'll do E for just a normal extrude, and then I'll extrude it on the Z axis, and then I'll just bring my mouse wheel down. I'll bring my mouse down to something like this, right? So this is exactly what we are looking for. So once we do this, I can hit on X and then dissolve, delete faces to delete the inner faces so that we have something nicely like this. Make sure you save frequently as you're working to have, in case Blender crashes, you'll be able to get your progress to fall back on. So now once we have this, let's add in our supporting edges. So if we hit on tab to go into edit mode, this is what we have, which is looking a little bit undesirable. So we are going to add in some supporting edges to tighten up everything. So let's go to make sure we have our edge select mode active, then alt click to select this edge, all the edges we want to add in our supporting edges. So I'll alt shift, then I'll keep on clicking. No, this edge is not part. Yeah, so keep on clicking until we have everything selected. Nice. And I think this part, and then we are done. Right, so we've selected everything, all the parts we want to add in our supporting edges. So once we are done, we can do Ctrl+B to add in our bevel. So Ctrl+B for bevel, and then I'll scroll my mouse wheel to add in 2 level of bevel. So we add in some level of bevel like this, right? So I think this will be fine. Let me tab out of edit mode to see what we have. Yeah, I think this is fine. Nice and beautiful. So now we still have a problem. These corners here are still not sharp as we want. I think this is a bit fine, but then these corners, this is too rounded, and then this is too rounded, this is too rounded. Yeah, so let's see how we can solve it. Right, so this, please pay attention to this part. This is very important. Once you understand how to work this, I think you are a step further into understanding how subsurface modeling really works. Right, it took me some time to get this, but then once you get this, you'll be able to do a lot more. Even you'll be able to move you from a beginner to, I think, intermediate level if you understand how this works. Right, so let's see how to solve that problem. Right, so at first glance, your first inclination will be to add in some supporting edges like this. So I'll do Ctrl+R, add in one supporting edge like this to hold this up, right? And then add in another supporting edge here to hold this up like this, right? So that we have some straight edge here. But the problem we get with this is sometimes it will break your geometry somewhere here. You see this, there's a little badge here, if you can see where there's a little bit tightness here, and then it's breaking the curve. You see there's a little badge here, and then this geometry is not really ideal, right? So it's not really sharp, but then it's not really ideal. So we are not going to do that. There's a better way of solving that. So let's do Ctrl+Z twice till we have all those cleared, right? So the better way of solving that is, you see how this geometry moves from here and then it moves up to here, right? So if I do Ctrl+R, you see we'll be able to add in a subdivision right here, right? And then that still wouldn't even solve the issue. It makes this side sharper, but then it still doesn't solve the issue. So how do we solve this? You have to reroute the way this geometry is working. So we have to create another edge here and then another edge here so that it holds this corner very tight, right? So I'll hit on K to select my knife tool, select this tool, click, and then I will click to create this red line here, and then I'll hit on enter to apply my cut. So I have a cut from here to here to here and then to here, right? Now if I hit on tab, you can see this part is a bit sharpened. Then now let's focus on this side and do the same thing. So I'll select my K, select from here, I'll click, and then click here, and then finally click here, and then I hit on enter to apply, right? So this is what we have. So now if we hit on tab, you can see this part is now sharpened. But then we have a triangle here. So let's just select this line, this edge, and then Ctrl+X to dissolve our line like this. So now we have a perfect square here, which is a quad, and then a quad. Then now if you hit on tab, you can see how sharp this edge is without adding any extra geometry anywhere, right? So we are going to do the same thing for here, for here, for here, right? To make all these corners sharp and beautiful, right? So if you don't get it this first time, we're going to do the same thing here. I hope you get it here, and then we will do the same thing here as well, but then in a different way, right? It's the same thing we did here, right? So as you can see, the same thing we did here, but it will make more sense once we do more practice. So let's do the same thing here, this side. So I hit on K to select my knife, click to add in a cut, and then I'll scroll to down up to here, and I hit on enter to apply, and I'll do the same thing here. K, select my knife, enter to apply, and then I'll dissolve this edge here. Control X to dissolve it. Now if you go and look at our subdivision surface, which is in object mode, we can see what we've created here, right? I'll go tab, and you can see what we have right here. I'll do the same thing here, but here it's a bit different because we don't have a corner like this, but then it's the same corner here. So this side, what we are going to do is we have to reroute these edges, so this edge and then this edge, to let them cut through here to make themselves as the supporting edges, and then we join this from here to here, right? So this will be a straight edge here. So let's start with that. So I'll select this point here, then shift select this point, and then hit on J to join them like this, right? So now we have one triangle here and then one triangle here. Now let's see how we can solve it the same way we did at this part, right? But now let's see how we can solve it. So let's select our knife cuts once again, then I'll cut up to here, and I'll go to down. You can hit on your right click to, and then continue with your cut. So I'll cut here, and then down, and once I am done with the cut, I can hit on enter to create my cuts like this. Now if I hit on tab, you can see this corner is being sharpened, right? But then we have a little bit of part here. So let's see how we can save this. So let's hit on 1 to go to our point select mode, select this point, hold shift, select this point, and then hit on J to join them. Then do the same thing here, and then J to join them, right? And then next, let's dissolve these 2 points by selecting this one and then this one, and then hit on Control plus X to dissolve those points like this, right? So now we have nice sharp corner here. And then we do the same thing here as well. Now you get the drill. So I'll move a little bit fast. I'll hit on K to select my knife tool, and then I'll cut. Let me cut from this side. I'll cut here, and then cut now, then enter to apply, and then I'll select, use my J, then select this and this, and then hit on J to apply, then select this and this, and then hit on J, and then next I'll just select this to Control X to dissolve them, so that we have something like this to hold this corner tightly like that. And then we do the last thing here, select this, cut, then select, cut, enter to select this at the middle, Control X to dissolve it, and then now we have a sharp corner here. So as compared to this is a very sharp corner, and then this we have rounded corner. So we are let's just symmetrize so that we duplicate whatever is on this side to the other side, right? So let's go into edit mode, and then let's hit on A to select everything, right? So once we have everything selected, let's just make sure we turn on our subdivision inside our edit mode so that we can see what we have, right? So let's hit on 3 to search for, to bring up our search tool, and then we can search for symmetrize like this, or you can go to your mesh, and then we have symmetrize here. So let's select symmetrize, and then how do we want to symmetrize it? The direction, what direction do we want it to go, right? So we have negative X right now, it's symmetrizing it negative X to X. So which means if you take a look at this gizmo here, this is your X, which is the positive, and then this is your negative X here. So it's symmetrizing it from negative X to X, which is something we don't want. Since we did this part here, right? So we have to symmetrize it from X to negative X. So from this side, which is X here. So on this Y, is the divider is right in the middle of the Y. So from this part, which is the X to the negative X. So click here, and then we go to positive X to negative X like this, right, to create the symmetry. Now if I hit on tab, you'll be able to see what we have. Nice and beautiful. So if I hit on slash to bring back everything, this is where we are now. So next, let's see how we can create our mouse wheel. So going to be straightforward. Let's shift A, and then let's add in our cylinder, right? So cylinder, let's leave the number of vertices to 32, it's fine. And then let's decrease the radius, make it a little bit tiny, and then let's decrease the depth to make it shorter, like this, right? Something like this will work. So next, let's rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees. So RY 90, so that we have a nice wheel like this, right? Then let's position it. Let's do like this. Select this one. So we are on the back, on the bottom view, which is the negative Z. Then let's hit on Z. Let's bring it right in the middle like this. Now let's go to our top view. Then GZ, bring it up until it passes through like this, right? Nice and simple. So next, let's focus on adding a little bit more detail to it to make it look a little bit appealing. So first, let me just scale it up so it fits the hole a little bit. Yeah, I think this looks nice and simple. So now let's hit on slash to isolate it, and then let's add in some more details. So I hit on tab to enter into edit mode. Then I'll select, go to my face select mode, select this face, and then alt click to select this face, and then I to add in an insertion to somewhere here. So once I have an insertion added, I'll hit on X to delete the faces, right? So I'll go to my edge select mode, select this edge, and then select this edge, right click, and then we go to bridge edge loops, right? So we can add it to our quick quick favorite, right click, add to quick favorite. So now anytime we hit on kill, we can just, no, I think I added the wrong thing. I added bevel edges, sorry. Right click, let's go to our edge, bridge edge loops. So right click, add to quick favorite. So now anytime I right click, we have bridge edge loops here. I can click on it to apply my edge loops like this. Nice, beautiful. So next, let me select this one, then alt click to select this. Then let's add in a bevel, Control plus P. Let's scroll our mouse wheel to have just 2 levels of bevel added like this to create this nice style here. So once we are done with that, we can select our edges once again by holding on alt shift click to select all the edges like this. And then let's add in another bevel, Control B, scroll our mouse wheel twice, and then add in a bevel nicely like this, right? So let's add a subdivision surface to see what we are doing. So subdivision surface like this, then right click, shade it smooth, and then this is what we have. I think it looks beautiful. Next, let's add in some more details at the middle. So I'll go to my face select mode, alt click to select this entire face, then hit on I to add in something like this. Then I'll hit on I once again, and then I'll hit on I so that it changes from single to individual. Then we can add in an extra individual faces like this, or you can just change it from here, individual like this. So I'll check individual, and then we add in some depth like this to create something like this. So we can go either inside or outside. I think the inside looks cool like this, so that we have some depth like this, right? Next, let's fill in the hole here. So I'll select my face select mode. Let me hide my subdivision to see what we are doing. So alt click to select this entire face. You have to select up to this point. So we hit on Control plus to add selection. So you can find it here. Select more or less, and then you do more, which is Control plus numpad plus, right, to add like this. Then we can do Shift D to create a duplicate, P, and then separate by selection, right, so that we have 2 cylinders, right? This, right? So I'll first select this, rename it to wheel outer, and then I'll select the other one and then name it to wheel inner, like that, right? So now once we've selected our wheel inner or tab into edit mode, now select this let's isolate that one once again by hitting on a slash. Now select this here, and then so first let me add in one look at the middle. I'm going to symmetrize whatever I do here to the other side, right? So I'll just select this, alt click to select it, E for extrude, and then S to scale it down, E, S to scale it down, and then we can use our grid fill to fill this up like this, right? Then next, Control R, and add a loop cut right here. We have one loop cut here, so we just add a loop cut right here, right? So we have something like this. So once you have this, select everything, and then F3, search for symmetry to symmetrize it, right? So now, since we rotated this and then our rotation is not applied, you would think that if you do from X to from negative X to X, it will work, but then it doesn't work since we rotated it and then we didn't apply our rotation. You remember we rotated it on the y-axis 90 degrees, right? So it was flat like this, and then we rotated it on the y-axis. So now we have to change the symmetry from negative Z to positive Z, right? So let me go to direction, and then let's change it to this, right? So from negative Z, which is the bottom, to top, right? And then we have our symmetry working nicely. So let's hit on tab and then slash to come back, and then this is what we have, right? So we are done with the top part. Now let's focus on the bottom part, right? So I'll click on X, to go into my bottom orthographic view, right? Like this. And then let's add in, so I think this reference image is done. You can hide it from our scene or even delete it if we want. Now let's add in another reference image for the bottom part. So it's going to be in the description below in case you want to follow along. So let me drag and drop this inside like this, and then let's go to our image, make sure it's in front, and then make sure we set the opacity so that we can see what we are doing inside. And then let's just hit on G to position it nicely to make it as aligned with our bottom part as much as possible, right? So next, let's just click on this so that we'll not be able to move our reference image easily, right? So once we have our reference image in place, let's start with the bottom part. So select this. We do the same thing we did for the top part. Alt click to select this loop here, this ring here, then Shift D to create a duplicate, and then P to separate by selection, right? So once we have separate by selection, we'll tab out of edit mode, select the one we just duplicated, and then rename it to bottom cover, right? You can name it to whatever you want. I think this makes sense for me. So once we rename our bottom cover, we can select it and then hold click to enter into edit mode, and then this is what we have, right? So once we have this, let's go into our edit mode to see what we have. So we have this shape here, this first shape here, from here up to this side. Let me just bring so we have the shape here from this side up to this side, and then we have another shape here, and then we have this inner part here. So let's see how we can recreate that. So with the first shape, once we select everything, your first instinct will be to do E. So let me go. Once you select everything, your first instinct will be to do E and then scale to scale it out, right? But then this comes with a little bit of problem. It doesn't scale evenly. You can see this part is shorter than this part, right? And then this part is shorter than this part, and then this is not what we are looking for. So right, if you take a look, you can see we want the thing to scale evenly all around. You see we have even shape all around, but then if we do extrude and then scale, we have something like this. So unless we manually do scale S and then Y, so once we do this and then we just select S and then Y to scale this out like this, which is a lot of work and which is something we don't want. So there's a better way of doing it. So let me go back. So we have this. So first we are going to fill it. We are going to fill the entire shape. So we hit on F for fill to fill it out like this, right? So once we fill it in, next let's go to our, and then we are going to use insert to create the rest of the shape. So if we hit on insert I to create insertion, you can see it's inserting all the shapes, but then it's doing it equally. All of them have equal shapes, and then all of them are inserted rightly like this, right? So now let's go back to our top view like this, right? So by the way, I'm using Alt and then the middle mouse. So once you click and then in the direction you want to go, so if I want to go to top, I'll just hold Alt, then click my middle mouse and then drag it on the top part. If I want to go to this side, I'll just Alt click. So that's what I'm using to change the views, right? So we have something like this, right? So I can hit on F, right? So let's go back to the top part, right? And then let's go and then let's do it once again. So I hit on I to insert until we are right about here, right? And then it's a bit flat, but then we have to extrude it outside, so we can use the depth to do that, right? So let's increase our depth like this to add in some depth at the bottom part, right? So we can go like this, and then let's just increase our depth to add in some depth like this, right? So once we do that, we can add in another extrusion, so another insertion by hitting on I to create an insertion like this, right? And then we can do another insertion by hitting on I to create a small insertion like this, and then we can use our depth to make it come inside like this, right? So this is the first part. First, let's add in some Alt click, and then let's add in some supporting edges to tighten up our form. So Control plus B, then we added the supporting edges like this to tighten our form. Right click and then shade it smooth. Now we have this nice form going on for us. Next, I think we are done with that part. Next, let's focus on the part in the middle, right? So that one too is going to be it's going to be fairly easy. Let's borrow a geometry from here. So I make sure I have my edge mode active. Then I'll select this edge at the middle, Shift D, you know the drill. Then P, separate by selection. Now we have two bottom covers. Let me hit on tab to go into edit mode. Then I'll select the other bottom cover, double click, and then I'll rename it as bottom cover 2, just to make everything simple. I'm short of names, so I think bottom cover 2 will work, right? So let's hit on tab to go back into edit mode. I think nothing is more difficult than coming up with names for your Blender layers. Most of the times, I don't really care about arranging it, and it always come back to bite me in the foot once the project gets more complicated. So it's a good thing to always name your layers, right? So now let's select it, and then let's hit on edit mode to go into edit mode. Let's hit on slash to isolate it. So this is what we have, right? So we're going to use the same drill. We're going to click to select everything, and then you hit on F to fill it out like this. Then let's bring it up a little bit, GZ to bring it up a little bit like this. Let me hit on slash to bring back everything. Let's go to our top view. Then this is what we have, right? So if you take a look at this, you can see we have one part inside and then we have another part outside, right? So let's hit on I with the face selected. Let's hit on I to insert the inner part like this, right? So once we hit on I to create one insertion, and then we can use our depth. So I'll come to this side like this. Then we can use our depth to bring this out until it's of the same size like this, right? So our depth to bring it out so it aligns perfectly with this. You can hit on Ctrl Z to go to your wireframe mode so that you can see it nicely. So we want it to align properly with the bottom part like this. Ctrl Z to go back to my solid mode. Then let's hit on slash to isolate this, right? So once we have this, we can then hit on I once again to create this buffer here, and then we can hit on X to delete this face here, right? So let me go back, and then the reason why we are doing it, that is there's a little bit of detail here that we have to create. So there are these holes that we have to create, and then we have this point, the small tiny holes that we have to create. So we need to have a nice geometry that will help us do that, right? So once we have this, let's okay, so I think we let's just fill it in once again, and then we create our geometry. So I'll double tap on F. I'll hit on F to fill it with a flat polygon, and then next let's select our point mode, then select this point, hold shift, select this point. So let me isolate it so that you can see what we have. So we have filled this in, but then we are going to create a nice geometry in the middle to help us create our details we want. We could have used grid fill, but then I think this is the best way in terms of because of the details we want to create at the middle. So I'll hit on J to add like this, then select this one, and then this, then hit on J to join them. Then I'll do the same thing here, J to join them. Then we join from here to here like this. Select these two, J to join them. It's a bit tedious, but then it's all part of modeling process. You have to take your time. J to join them. So we have all 9 squads, but then we have trace lines in the middle that we can use to create our details, right? Nice, simple. So next we need more geometry in the middle to be able to create our details. So I'll go back to my subdivision, and then let me just unhide everything so that we can see what we have. So we need more geometry in the middle to be able to create this. So first, let me go to apply my subdivision surface, select this, go into edit mode, and then this is what we have, right? So let's just change to the display mode, and then let's make sure it's on cage. So 2 level of subdivision is way too high, so let's decrease it to 1. Yeah, I think we'll be able to work with 1 level of subdivision, which is fine. So now we have to apply our subdivision. So there's one problem that comes with applying a subdivision like this. We want this, you see, we want this part. So if I hide my subdivision in my edit mode, we want this part to be sharp, right? But then if we apply our subdivision straightforward, it's going to make this part rounded. So how do we solve that problem? So let me just apply my subdivision so that you see what we are talking about. It's going to make this part rounded, but then we want to apply our subdivision. So let me just go back and then apply my subdivision. Now if I tap into edit mode, you can see there's a roundness right here, and no matter how much I try to sharpen this edge, it still won't work. We will still get some roundness here. So how do we solve that? Let me go back with my subdivision active, and then we have to first select this edge, alt click to select this entire edge here, and then add in an edge crease of 1. So we do shift plus E, and then we can drag our mouse wheel or hit on 1 to add an edge crease of 1. So once we have 1 edge crease added, you can see it from here. You see we have edge crease, mean crease of 1 added to this shape here. So once we have it added, it will look something like this, right? Make this part hard. And then next we can go back to our object mode and then apply our subdivision. Now our subdivision is applied, everything is looking nice, but then this part we were still able to maintain the fidelity of this part, which the subdivision was not able to affect it to make it round. Yeah, if that makes sense. So now once we apply our subdivision, we can select everything once again and then remove the main crease like this. All right, so now we have this straight part here and then this here. Let's add in another level of subdivision. Yeah, then now we can just add in our extra loop here, just to tighten up this side. Right click and then shade it smooth. Now next, let me unhide everything, and then let's focus on creating the details at the bottom part. Right, so with this part, I'm going to use this 4 squares to create the details. So I'll make sure I have my shift click to select this. Now I'll hit on I to create an insertion. Then I'll hit on I again to make everything insert together instead of using the individual. So we have something like this. Right, and then let's scale it on the y-axis to bring them closer like this. Right, then we can insert it once again. To add another insertion, and then with this insertion we can scale this out, and with this insertion we can go to our point select mode, select this point, these 2 points here, these 4 points here, and then S to scale it on the y-axis to bring them down like this till we have something like this. Right, then I think we can do the same thing for these two once again, SY, but then this will scale them outside like this to create this kind of nice shape on the bottom. Right, so once we have this, we can select all these 4, and then we can do extrude and then extrude. So we extruded it twice to bring it down like this. Right, so let's increase the viewport subdivision to 2, right, to make everything look nice. Then we've created this hole. Right, then the inside part you can insert 1 like this to create this nice hole like that. Right, so we have 3 of these holes. So we have 1 here, 1 here, and then 1 here. Right, so let's take a shortcut. Let me hit on to isolate this. Then since we have almost like a similar geometry here, here, and then here, let's just duplicate this geometry 2 times to create the rest of the holes, and then later on you can add in the extra details you want. So I'll go to my edge, select face select mode, hold shift, select all these edges here, all these faces here, and then hit on X to delete faces, so that we have this faces here. So I'll just hide my subdivision surface, so that we have all these empty holes here. So let's fill it in with this same geometry right inside. Right, so to do that, I'll select this inner part here, and then Control plus to increase my subdivision, to increase my selection. So you can go selection, more, Control numpad plus to increase it until I have this entire part selected. Right, so once I have this entire part selected, I'll do Shift plus D to create a duplicate. Then I'll move it up on the y-axis to something like this. Right, so here we can do some snapping tricks. We can snap to vertices. Let me go to the top view like this. Then once I hit on G, I can hit on Control to snap to this vertex like this, as close as possible. And then we can create a duplicate. Once again, Shift D, create a duplicate, and then snap this one to this here. Right, something like this. And then next, we can go to our edge vertices, select mode, select these 3 vertices, G to move them, then hold on Control to snap them to this side. Right, so once we have everything snapped like this, it's still not joined. So if I turn on, you can see what we have. So let's select everything here, then let's hit on M to merge by distance. Right, so once we merge everything by distance, Blender will try as much as possible to merge everything nicely for us. Right, with the exception of the ones at the middle. So these two ones, right? So we are going to merge them. You select these two. So I'll select this Alt Shift and then select this. Now we'll hit on merge and then merge at last, right? So I'll do the same thing here. Merge at last to merge this to this one. And I'll do the same thing here once again. Select this, merge at last, then do once again merge at last to merge everything, so that everything looks nicely merged together, right? So as simple as that. Next, you can see there's one more detail here, which are these three little holes. So let's see how we can create those holes, right? So I'll first select this, then double tap G to scroll them to bring them in place. So I'm going to use these three to create those holes that you can see, right? So to create these holes, we're going to bevel the edge, bevel the vertices instead of the edge, right? So we can do Shift Control B to create bevel, and then you can see we have something like this, right? This is not what we want, so we have to come to the settings here and then change the profile type from Super Eclipse to Custom to create something like this, right? So this is exactly what we are looking for, right? But then it's not entirely circle. Let me just increase the width a bit. Hold Shift to scale to increase it a bit. It's not entirely circle, so let's see how we can make it entirely circle. So I'll select these three here, all this geometry here, right click, loop tools, and then circle, right? Make sure you have your loop tools add-on active, so you can just come to your edit preference, add-ons, and then search for loop tools, and then make sure you install it inside the Blender. So I'll just select this loop tools and then circle, then I'll do the same thing here, loop tools and then circle, to make all these three circularized. I'll go back to my face select mode, select all the faces like this, and then we hit on I to insert one, and then we can extrude it inside with E. So make one like this to create these tiny holes, which looks nice and beautiful, no any artifact. But if you take a look at this, you can see this part is not really connected, right? So let's tap into edit mode, you can see, and then let's try and fix this, right? So let's hit on A, then let's select these two. So you can see G, you see it's not really connected. So let's select these two and then M, merge at center, right? So now it's just one shape like that. So let me go back. Then this is what we have. Everything is looking nice and beautiful. Then next, you can, of course, I'm going to leave this to you. Create those buttons. This is your assignment. So create those buttons that you see in the middle here and then here. So let me go back for you to see the buttons I'm talking about. So if you go to you can see there are some buttons here. So there's a button here and then there's a button here. So figure out how you can create those buttons yourself. Yeah, so once we do that, we are finally done with our mouse. Everything is looking nice and beautiful. I think the final part will be creating this separation here. So we have one part here and then one part here. So let's see how we can create that separation. I think it starts from somewhere here, right? So let's go to our edge select mode and alt click, select this entire edge. First I'll save my file to make sure everything is saved, and then so there are a few ways of doing this. We can, so once we have this selected, we can hit on V to cut, to separate these two shapes together like this, as you can see. So once I hit on V, it's going to separate these two shapes like this, and then I can right click to keep it in place. Then I can do the same thing here, alt click, select everything, and then hit on V to cut and separate these two faces like this, then right click to keep it, right? So once we do that, Next, we can separate the faces basically. So with it, I can select this part, then hit on L to select linked faces. Since these two are separate faces, so I've selected the linked faces. Now I can hit on P and then separate by selection, so that now I have two separate shapes like this, right? Nice. So with this selected, let's isolate it and then let's fill in this part. I'll alt click, select this part, kill, and then do grid fill to fill in this part for us nicely. And then we can add in one loop cut right here to hold this form to create a nice shape here. You can do the same thing here. Let's go ahead, alt click, grid fill, and then add in a loop cut right here to tighten up something here nicely, right? A slash, and then let's do the same thing here. Alt click, KO, grid fill, and then let's add in a loop cut right here. Then do the same thing here, click, KO, grid fill, and then let's add a loop cut right at the middle, then bring it here, right? So that we have this part tightened and the other parts tightened as well. Nice and simple. So we have created these separations here. Control plus S to save our progress so far. So next, let's add in some materials and then do our final composition and render. So basically, as you can see, everything is done. Now let's focus on creating our materials and then do our final render. So as usual, as we always do, let's drag here to bring in a new window here, and let's bring this window up like this, and then let's change this to our shader editor, right? So once we change this out to our shader editor, here it's going to be where we see our render. So I'll position it something like this, and I'll look through my camera, I'll zoom in a little bit, and then lock my camera to view like this. Next, we can go to our render engine properties and then change it to cycles, and then change the device to GPU compute like this. And then next, finally, we can hit on render to see our rendered image, right? So everything is dark because we don't have any image being applied to it. So let's quickly add in an HDRI image, and then we can use it to add in our materials, and then later on add in our lights if we want to. So first, let's go to objects, let's come to our shader editor here, and then let's change it to world. And then once we have our background image, your strength should be 1, so I'll set my strength to 1 like this. I'll select my background image, then hit on Control plus T. You should get your Node Wrangler add-on active to be able to have this. If you don't, go to your edit and then check for your Node Wrangler. Yeah, so once we have this, we are loading in an environment texture, which will be the HDRI. So I'll hit on open, then locate where I saved my HDRIs. So they are free, you can get some online, just Google free HDRIs and you get a lot of them. Any of them doesn't matter, I'll just pick in something just to be able to see my objects when I apply the material. So I'll pick in any random HDRI like this. I think it's fine. So yours will probably look like this with the HDRI at the background, right? So if you want to hide the HDRI, you go to your render properties, and then you look for transparent under film. So film like this, you look for transparent and then click on transparent, and then your HDRI image will be hidden, but then you have your HDRI light affecting your object, right? So we have this, nice and simple. So next, let's start adding in our materials. So we're going to start from the easiest, which will be the first one at the top. So let's select it, and then let's change it from world to object, right? Now we have access to adding materials to the object. So let's hit on new. It's going to be a very simple one, new material, and then let's make sure it's set to white, and then let's decrease the roughness a bit, and then let's add in a little bit of code. Let's add in more code like this. So you can see it's looking very shiny if you look at the reflections here. So let's increase the reflection a little bit to something like this, and then we have it. Yeah, so that will be our basic material. So let's name it body, just for organization purpose, right? You can name it whatever you want. Yeah, so next, let's give this a metallic material, which will be the wheel So let's add in a new material. Now let's make the metallic to 1 like this, and then let's decrease. Let's make the color a little bit darker like this, so that it looks like a silver metal. And then let's decrease the roughness so it's all nice and shiny like this, right? Looks beautiful. Next, let's give this a darker color. So let's select it, new, then let's change the base color to pure black like this. Then we can decrease the roughness a little bit, and then maybe add in a coat of 1, then decrease the roughness of the coats like this, right? So this, the inner circle inside is going to share the same material as this, right? So let's select this material and hold shift to select it. Let's select this material, this one here, and then hold shift and then select this one, and then you do Control plus L, and then let's link the material so that both of them share the same material, this one and then this one, right? So next, let's add in some material to this one. So we are going to add in, let me open it real quick, this kind of sparkle here, that's black dot, using a Voronoi texture. All right, it's going to be simple. So let's select this and then hit on new to add in a new material. Then with the principal BSCF selected, let's do Shift A, go to texture, and then let's locate our Voronoi texture like this, right? So we are going to plug the distance. So I'll just click and drag. You see there's a plus sign. If I release it, it will ask me to add in a color. So I'll add in a color ramp. So color ramp like that. So I'll just hit on enter to apply, and then I'll apply the color into the base color like this, right? So once we do that, you can see our color ramp is been applied, but then it's a little bit weird. So let's fix that. To fix that, it's very simple. With our node wrangler active, select this and then hit on Control plus T, and then let's change it from generated to object like this, and then it should fix and wrap around our material nicely, right? So once we have that, I'll bring this to the back. Then let's start playing with the Voronoi texture. First, let's increase the scale, make it a little bit smaller. So if you increase the scale, it makes it smaller like this. And then next, we can move this slider, the black slider, to this side, and then let's move the white slider to this side like this. Let's bring the white slider closer like this to see our, make the dots smaller like this, right? And then next, let's play with the roughness detail. Let's add in a little bit of detail. It takes a little bit of playing around with it. Then let's, yeah, so we are getting there. We can bring this back like this till we have something like this, yeah. And then if it's too much, you can increase the scale and then increase the detail, and then let's keep playing, increase the roughness till we have something like this. I think this is fine for me. Yeah, so just play with it till you find what works best for you. Right, like this. Yeah, I think this looks fine for me. Let's go with this. So next, let's focus on this part here, and then let's create the materials for that one. So this is going to be a glass, and then we will have a reflected object inside it. We have a light object inside glowing nicely like this. So let's see how we can create that. So to first create that, let's create the other object which will be inside. So I'll select this object, hit on slash to isolate it, then tab into edit mode, make sure we have on face mode on, select this face, hold shift and control, and then click to select this entire face, and then do shift plus D to create a duplicate, separate by selection by hitting on P, right? So once we separate this by selection, if we take a look at our outline, you can see we have bottom one and then bottom two, right? So the second one we just created is the bottom two. So I hit on slash, then hit on slash once again to isolate the one we just created. Let's hit on tab, and then let's add in some supporting edges, right? So I'll do Control plus R to add in a loop cut right at the middle, then do Control B to bevel the loop cut so that we have one cut at the top and then one at the bottom. Next, I'll do Control R, add one here, then Control R, Control R to add another one here, just to hold up this corners a little bit more. So with that, we select everything by hitting on A and then Shift plus E, and then we add in extrude along normals. We extrude this a little bit like this. Once we have done extruding, let's make sure we check our face orientation to make sure everything is nicely oriented. So I'll come here and then I'll check my face orientation, then it's red, right? It's because of the extrusion with it. So let's fix that by hitting on tab A to select everything, then do Shift plus N to recalculate normals so that everything is nice and blue. So let's turn off our face orientation and then tab to go into object mode. Now we have two objects, this one, the outer one, and then the inner one. So we have bottom two, these two. So let's select the two and then let's isolate them for a little bit, and then let's make sure the smaller one fits perfectly inside the bigger one. So we select the smaller one like this, then we go to object and then let's set the origin first. So let's set this small point right in the middle. So select this one, set origin to geometry to bring it right in the middle, and then we hit on S. Then we scale it a little bit like this so that it falls within the wall of the bigger one. So once we do that, we can hit on slash to go back once again, and then now let's apply our material. So first let's start with the outer one. So like select it, then hit on new. It's going to be a simple glass. So transmission, set the weight to 1 like this, and then you can decrease the roughness a little bit, but then we make it a little bit frosted. Let's make sure the base color is purely white like this, right? I think this will work. Then next, let's double click to select the one inside, which will be the bottom bar 2, the one inside, and then let's hit on new to add in a new material. Then let's set the transmission to more than 1. You can see it starts glowing. You can change the color to any color we want just to confirm. I think this is fine like this. To see the glow even more, let's set our strength of the weld light to 0 so that we can see the glow even well. So you can see only this object is glowing. Let me set it back to 1. Nice, right? So I think we are basically done with our materials. It's left with this bottom part. So it's going to share material with the top part. So select the two, Control plus L, and then do link material to link the two materials together like that, right? So now we are done with our basic part of our material. Let's quickly add in a backdrop, and then we can render our final image. So let's do Shift A, mesh, and then let's add in a plane. Then we can scale the plane up like this, very big. Then do Control plus A to apply the scale. Then we can bring the plane down until it touches the bottom part. So G and then Z to bring it down until it's touching the bottom part like that, right? So nice and simple. And now we can come here and position our object nicely, right? So let's change this, go back to object, and then let's apply material to this plane, right? So if I check here, you can see this is what we have, but then let's apply an actual grade to this plane like this, right? So we're going to apply a material. So I'll select this, then hit on new to create a new principal BSDF, then select the principal BSDF and do Control plus T to add in an image texture, then open, and then I'll add in my floor PSD, which is an actual plane like this, nicely. Then next, we are almost done. So at this point, you can choose to play with the HDRIs and then see what works best for you or what kind of results they give you. So you can download a couple of them and then try your hands on them to see the one that works best for you, or you can add in your own light. It's all up to you. Feel free to play with it. feel free to add in your own light to create as much dynamic scenes as you want, right? So but then the HDRI does most of the work for you anyway, so feel free to play with it. Feel free to add in your own light and all to make the scene yours as much as you want. So if you want to add in your own light, you know how to do it. We're not going to tackle that one in this tutorial. This tutorial is already long, so take your time. We are going to render with our HDRI. So let's decrease the strength of our HDRI like this, and then let's decrease the strength of our reflective light. I think that is too much, so let's go back to objects and then let's decrease the strength a little bit. Yeah, I think this is fine, right? And then finally we can go to our render engines and then do a couple of render settings. Go to color management and change this to maybe high contrast, base contrast. Just play with it till you find. I'll go with just high contrast. I think it works best for this. And then finally we can add some depth of field to our camera. So we select our camera, go to camera, and then we take depth of field, and then we select the focus object by using this color drop. So I'm going to click on here to make this the focus object, and we can play with the f-stop till we get the perfect amount of depth of field we are looking for. So something like 0.8 is fine. Then we can position our camera in place in how we want, right? Nice and beautiful. So once you're done, you can do Ctrl S to save your final image. Make sure you set your max sample to your desired number. The lower the faster, but then the lower the more noisier image you get, but then the higher the more slow it will take your PC to render. So based on the power of your PC, I set mine to 1000. I think I'm using a laptop with an RTS 3070, so it's fairly okay, and it will render a bit faster. So set it depending on the PC or specs and everything. Yeah, so that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you learned something from it. It's my friend, and I hope this tutorial was helpful. Hopefully it wasn't too long and I didn't do a lot of talking. I hope you learned something from it. More of these tutorials are coming. Yes, I was filled with work, but then I'm free now and going to do a lot of cool and now some tutorial like these ones. So see you on the next one. It's my friend out. Yeah, so this is the final render. As you can see, it's looking very beautiful and it's rendering real time. It's almost done. I'm not forwarding it, it's almost done. Yeah, so it will be done very soon, and then yeah, it's done. So this is the final render, and as you always, you can just do save as to save your final image. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. See you on the next one. It's my friend, and peace out.